different every day. Can't find those tracks in town, can't figure where they lay. Took all my planning and just threw it all away. We have to wait to see what happens every day. Hey, but I'm not one of those guys. Hello and welcome back to Tony Talking again. Welcome you in on a beautiful morning here in West Virginia. I am waking up here on a Sunday morning, and for once I don't have my. That's why I don't have my suit on or my white shirt on. But nevertheless, I come to talk to you about something that's pretty important. I know in the years past, probably in the last 15 years, we've really seen a big surge in interest in Krautrock, what's known as German music. And it's interesting to me because I considered myself at the time pretty learned with music, but I'd never heard much about it until a certain period of time. I'd managed some stores around Washington D.C., and I think it was in connection with those that I come into the band Can for the first time, and I really just discovered them at that point. And I always thought it was very odd that I didn't know. So there was almost like at least where I was, there was a unavailability of this music and a lot of this music. A lot of it came to my attention through what I consider to be a pretty important resource. And that's what the basis of what today is going to be about. It's about this wonderful book by Julian Cope called Krautrock Sampler. This is something people don't talk about very much. This book is probably worth a lot of money. I haven't researched it, but I find it very odd that this book is not in circulation more. And I really believe that this is a great work, and it's at least equal to that Modern Antiquarian, which was a big, huge European hit that Julian did regarding the study of stone structures on the English continent and their relationship to religion or paganism or different aspects of that. And it's a very scientific book. This is a very scientific book in its own way. There's a lot of opinion, of course, but this book is your key. If you want to really understand Krautrock, my recommendation is for you to trust him, trust Julian's work with this. I'm really surprised that he hasn't got number one more credit for this, but he hasn't gotten more credit for his music also, especially for a period of time. Peggy's Suicide, Jehovah Kill, really what started with probably Skellington and that area. A very deep, soul-searching exploration, very, very, very free. And a lot of it is born through this. You notice Julian wearing noise shirts and such. And if you notice here on the front, you have Amandul, the cover of the Amandul record here, or the back of this. This is absolutely wonderful. Then you have your Cosmic Couriers inside here. I would recommend, if you could seek this book out, to try to find it through file sharing if you can't find a copy of it. If you find a copy of it, it's probably going to be very expensive. Here's some stuff from the Amandul stuff and the disaster and cluster areas. But anyway, this book goes through a very good prehistoric underground analysis by Julian as to how some of this music was born, and a lot of it was born, out of the political landscape of the aftermath of Hitler and World War II. These are the children that express themselves differently, and as Julian noted, you'll find more sidelong freak out music on this than you will in the entire annals of all the American and the British music at that time. Why? Because it was less song oriented, and I'm supposing, as Julian hints at this book, that there was some rebellion there, and there was some effect from that, and you get to hear the bit of Krautrock rising and at the end. But what's great about this book is this book really separates itself into nine chapters, and then he ends up at the end ranking his 50 favorite. And of course, in the margins of my book, you'll see little check marks. because I bought one and I bought the next one and I'm like, man, this is great. Some of the stuff, I was not as into as other stuff, but some of the stuff is an absolute revelation. There's so much information in this book. I beg anybody who's interested in really expanding your depth of at least the origins of Krautrock. This doesn't go into everything. He has his bands that he's missed, and there's been some people that have complained to that end, and that's going to be up to you to decide. I tend to trust the Arch Druid, as he's called, and I love this. I'm not a big fan anymore of some of the other stuff that has come out of this, but I do think it's an incredible genre if you've not checked it out, and it is not certainly a one trick pony. This is not something that is um, really restricted to one genre of music. Krautrock really, I don't like the term. I think it's basically German music, and at the time, and they were experimental. They were a lot more experimental than the general music in the United States, and a lot more experimental music made it onto record and is now preserved forever. And this is what I think Julian highlights in this book. He first talks about Faust, and the Faust was a promotion with Faust. He talks about the way that the Faust records were foisted on the English public. We didn't see them much over here. They ended up, of course, coming out later. I do really enjoy the band. There's some pictures of some of these records here. But you'll see that each of these, if you look through this book, each of these have a different, it's written in text. And you end up then in the middle with some nice pictures of some of these records. And there's a beautiful section here in the middle that has some of these different album covers, which is another great feature of these records. These records have some of the best artwork of any records in the world, certainly some of the most psychedelic and crazy stuff. Then you got the minimalism of like Neu and Harmonia and things such as that. But anyway, going down through this quickly here and briefly, not to steal you reading from it. Then it goes into Tangerine Dream, and I'm a little less interested in Froze and Tangerine Dream stuff. I like some of the early stuff, but I'm really not. I'm really not as much into the stuff post Phaedra that turned to a more electronic thing. It's just not my. It's not my bag. I listen to it, but it's not as interesting as some of this other stuff. Chapter 5 is Neu. Neu is a fabulous. Many of you've heard that, super influential on David Bowie's Berlin period. He speaks to them. Actually, there's a video of him speaking about Neu, I believe, somewhere on the internet that I've seen. Michael Roda, of course, went on. Neu, of course, went to Cluster and Harmonia, bottling this Music von Harmonia, which is one of the big classics, the big detergent bottle record. Fantastic record if you haven't heard that. I like the deluxe record too. It's a little more elegant, a little more placid, but it's a beautiful record too. Both those Harmonia records are just fantastic. Michael Roda were involved in, and then you get the craziness of Dinger, Klaus Dinger, and his journey from the beginning of Kraftwerk, and he ends up in La Dusseldorf once everything is done with his brother and such. But what and then it goes to the classic record of Neu 75. And all three of the Neu records really are fantastic records. The first Neu record is very much sets out the sparse landscape and sets out really where they're coming from. You've got that motoric beat introducing and rearing its head. You get the dreamy landscapes that Rhoda is producing on some of the quieter tracks. And then you move on to the madness of 2, where they ran out of money in the budget. And so the second record ends up being like off-speed versions of the same stuff that they had because they didn't have enough money to record anything more. Just craziness. But some really good tracks. And then to me, and some people think so, some people don't. But I think 75 is the masterpiece. It really foreshadowed punk. You've got Hero on there and After Hours, which are really raucous parts of side 2. Then you've got the beauty of side 1. And I think if nobody's heard Neu 75, that would be my recommendation to start off on with Neu. Then you end up with Can. And can is something, again, that I said I discovered when I was managing the store in Rockville. It was some crazy music. I think Tago Mago was the first one I heard it. And that record is really experimental and harsh. You go through people who don't know Can. There's different eras of Can. You have the Can with Malcolm Mooney, which was the beginning part. It's all explained in this book. But they were more percussive. And I think the singer, he was an African American singer from the United States who was in the military, who was Can's first singer. Very percussive. He and Jack A. Liebezeit, the drummer, really locked in. And after that, then the next singer who came on after a short break was the guy that Holger Zuke saw out on the street and has just passed. Damo Suzuki has just passed within the last few months. Was the singer of Can through what a lot of people consider the golden period, Future Days, I.E. Bamyasi, and if I'm not Edgy Bamyasi. I'm sorry, I don't think I'm pronouncing that right. But Tagomago too, and so I mean that was a really productive period for them. And Future Days, of course, is just beautiful, beautiful record too. But they were, again, more of a jazzy, free band. They were the type of band that would go out, and there's a lot of document of it now for people who don't know Can. But if you don't know, they were the type of band that would just go out on stage without a set list and just make up the entire concert on the spot. And they were very good at doing that. And that's what made it. That's what made their performances kind of strange when they ended up getting a hit like Spoon, and they want everybody wants to hear the hit record, and they go out. I guess they figured to be able to go out through it. I never heard it really played live except on some of those appearances that are on TV where they played maybe Old Grey Whistle Test or some other English music TV show or Rock Palost or something like that. But anyway, Can is an entire trip and. Fantastic. I'm on duel 1 and 2. This is really, really hardcore stuff. I love some of the records. I'm not a huge fan of some of the others. Phallus Day is really chaotic. Some of that stuff was recorded extremely poorly, and there's a lot of a lot of those records which are good, but they continued on for a long time. They were more of a communal band, and I'd say, if you're saying that just to stay, like Julian Cope had said, they probably stayed truer to the trail of what Krautrock was, and really in just more or less a cacophonous in a cacophonous sense. I think their music ends up almost, some of that early stuff, like I'm saying, Phallus Day and stuff, really is very jarring, and the effect of it is bad. But I think Yeti, the one that we have the artwork from here, is probably their most best known one, and it's toned down enough to really get through. And I think it's really nice, and they got signed through Liberty UA and made a series of records after that. But I think that for me, their lack of musicianship relative to the others. I'm not saying there weren't good musicians in there, but they were less musical probably than the other. They were more of everybody pick up a shaker and let's all make music. Everybody make music together type of a deal than some of the other music that was definitely oriented more from a classical or from a more trained perspective. And that leads us into Asherah Temple. And Asherah Temple was probably the next covered in this book. Asherah Temple, if you have not heard the first record is absolutely unbelievable. And the interesting thing is that their drummer was Klaus Schultz. And you're saying drummer Klaus Schultz. People know Klaus Schultz as the electronic artist, but they did not know that he was a drummer in some of these early Krautrock classic records, and this one especially, which is a complete Asherah Temple was kind of the first record is kind of an assault also, and it's not recorded great either, but what they were trying to put forth is something completely different from some of the other folks. Certainly the guitar playing of Manuel Gotching was better than a lot of the other players, and he ended up servicing again later. These two players ended up servicing later on what will be chapter 9, which is kind of the ultimate end to this book. But you talk about the stuff that happened at the end of this. They began to make more music, a little more psychedelic music, music that was affected by LSD and things like that in the studio. So the music became more drug oriented, if you want to say, or drug affected. And that really peaked with the series of records. And you can see me start to smile here because some of the stuff is just insane. The whole Cosmic Courier scene with a gentleman by the name of, and let me make sure I get this right, Rolf Ulrich Kaiser and the Cosmic Couriers, who essentially were the ultimate realization of the psychedelic German experience in the studio. The series of records that they made really moved out of other artists, but really revolved around recording sessions which were held and were recorded under the influence, essentially. And they made long music and then patched together the studio from what they had later. Well, Rolf had himself a sidekick, which he called the Sternmännchen, which was the Star Maiden, Gilly. And Gilly was the narrator through a lot of these records, and they put effects on her voice. And there they also did a record with that's really collectible at this time, an original record, but there are repressings of it, of Timothy Leary, who met Asherah Temple over there and recorded. And Gilly was at the sessions, and Rolf was involved. And there's a whole long narrative in this that Julian writes, and it really ends up sad because I think Rolf and Gilly just kind of faded away. They went really badly financial. They got involved in some bad, heavy financial things, and it kind of was the end of that. But the point of is this, and I know this is going on for a little bit. This book is invaluable. If you can find this in the file sharing, you should find this. There's a wealth of knowledge in this. I have gained more knowledge in one subject out of this book than I have any other book in my life. And I've been a voracious reader of rock music and rock books. This book is fabulous. And the fact that he didn't get a prize for writing this book, and the fact that this book was the launching pad for Krautrock in the modern era, whether anybody wants to acknowledge it or not. And it's almost the same as Julian's career. He doesn't get the credit that he deserves. Now, for another one of these, I'll come back and discuss, probably in less length, the second book that Julian Cope wrote, Japrock Sampler. This one is a little more readily available, and it was a little bit of a larger edition in a hardback book. But nevertheless, and there may be other editions of that Krautrock sampler too. He does the same thing in this. He goes down through his top 50, puts you through some intense moments, and there's some great stories as there are in the Krautrock book. But if I could just quickly, I wanted to look here. Excuse me. I wanted to look here and give you finally, as a final go, a little show through these pictures here that we have. I wanted to show you all these ones that he had in the middle pages, which I think are important. These are beautiful album covers. That's one of the things about Krautrock that's just great. But they're all kind of great album covers shown with this. And I wanted to also tell you here at the end of this, to give you some idea of how his ranking goes with this. And you have some stuff at the end. There's the Cosmic Jokers there, and you have some stuff as it kind of goes on here. The Asherah Temple join in. Records like that, the Can records. There's a picture of Julian. But here's some other stuff at the end of this. But to just give you some idea of what he says the top 50 are, his top 50 are. And he doesn't put them in any order, but he talks about Amon Duel, Parawart's Duel, Paradise Wart's Duel, I guess the name of it. Phallus Day, of course, Yeti, Wolf City. Some of the records here, 7 Up, the Timothy Leary record, the Can records, all the Can records really, Cosmic Jokers records, all of those, the Faust records, he recommends. The Harmonia, La Dusseldorf records. La Dusseldorf is a little bit different trip. We can talk about that maybe later. Some Klaus Schultz and some Walter Wegmuller things here at the end. But a great in review records at the end. He does reviews of each of the records also, which point out a lot of history and a lot of things that you would have no idea to have. If there's any way you can get a hold of this, you're interested in Krautrock, this is the book you want. Julian Cope's Krautrock Sampler. Thank you for listening today. Remember to subscribe, like, follow, do what you do. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.